So new construction is everywhere in Philadelphia, but if you're thinking about buying a new home, just know that not all developments in the city are created equal. So before you get caught up in the modern finishes and that new home smell, I want to give you everything that you need to know to avoid any costly mistakes and make sure that you're getting the best deal possible. I've helped tons of people buy new construction in Philadelphia, and I've also worked directly with developers selling hundreds of new homes across the city. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to new builds. And whether you're looking to buy a move-in ready home or considering something that's still under construction, I do have some tips on how to help navigate that process. My name is Marco DiGabriele, your local real estate agent here in Philadelphia. And it's my goal to provide you with everything that you need to know about living your best life on Broad Street. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in Philadelphia, shoot me an email or drop a comment below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So first off, what should you look for when you're looking for a new construction home? Number one, you want to know that not all builders in Philly are created equal, and Philadelphia is a very interesting market because we don't have a lot of the big box builders like Toll Brothers and D.R. Hortons unless you're going out into the suburbs. In the city, most of our developers are smaller shops or even medium-sized regional developers. So when you're looking at new construction, especially when it's one-off single-family homes, you don't really know who's behind that project. So you should get an understanding of what their level of experience is, because developer experience does vary in the city, and you may have someone who's doing their first development project, while you may have another development happening by someone who's very reputable, very experienced, and really knows what they're doing. The other thing to look at is the difference between a developer and a builder. So a developer is the person who owns the land and is facilitating the entire process by putting an architect in place. They're working with the city to get the permits, they're working with engineers, and they are sometimes hiring a builder if they don't have an in-house shop. The builder could be a third-party builder, so builders and developers are not always the same person. So you want to look at both who's developing the property, but also who is building it. The second thing I'll say to be aware of is when you're buying new construction, I would still always recommend getting a home inspection. I know it's brand new, I know it looks great, but just because it looks great doesn't mean that everything in the home is functioning properly. You could still have a defective HVAC system that gets put into the home. You could have, different defects with anything that went into the build process. So even if you're buying new construction, I would always recommend that you still get a home inspection. And then the third thing to look at when you're looking at new construction is just the level of the finishes. So some builders go really high end, others, make it look high end, but it's not high end. And then there's other finishes that just flat out look cheap, and they are cheap. So when you're looking at new construction, it's important to know what kind of finishes are going into the home, what the appliance packages are going into the home, and whether or not the finishes are of a high quality, just so that you're aware of what you're buying. You don't need to buy the most fanciest, luxurious new construction in the world, but it's good to just know what you're getting. So knowing the finish level is very important, especially if you're looking at properties before they're completed. There are a few things to be aware of with the process of buying a new construction home versus a standard residential. So if you are looking at a home that's new construction, especially if it is not yet built, there are some pros and cons that you want to be aware of. So the pros are you may have the opportunity to customize the home in certain ways and pick some selections. So you may be able to pick things like flooring, backsplashes, tiles, cabinets, depending on the builder's process and depending on how early you put the home under contract. The other thing is builders do like to put homes under contract early because they can show those contracts to the bank, and that helps them get more financing for the project, especially if it's for multiple homes. So the builders and developers do have an incentive to sell homes pre-construction. So they may be able to pass on some of those savings to you or make some concessions to you as far as like those customizations that we talked about. The cons of buying a new construction home are definitely just the process in general, and especially the timeline. So you need to really be able to be flexible if you're buying a new construction home. I have had many experiences with buyers where the developer or the builder tell us that they're confident that the home will be ready in 2 months, 3 months, and come to find out, you know, there's a delay with either them getting materials or a contractor walking off of the site or the city tying them up with, you know, red tape or permitting issues, and that new construction home doesn't get delivered for 4, 5, 6 months. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. So just be aware, if you are buying something that's not built yet, you do have to be able to roll with the punches a little bit. And then the other thing as far as timeline goes is locking a mortgage rate can be a little bit more difficult if you're buying something that's not built yet, because again, you don't know exactly when it's going to be delivered. So you do need to get a lender on your team that knows how to deal with new construction. And there are lenders that have programs that will lock your rate for an extended period of time, specifically for a new construction process. The other thing to be aware of with the process of buying new construction is just the contract. So there is a separate contract for new construction in Pennsylvania, and a lot of builders will accept that contract because it's a boilerplate contract that was made by the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. But a lot of builders also do have their own contracts or addendums that edit the boilerplate contract. So that's something to be aware of, because those contracts typically do favor the builder, and you probably do want to review what you're signing just to make sure you're not signing something that says that the builder, you know, has 20 years to be able to finish your home, because in that case you could end up in some hot water. And then also the inspection process with new construction is typically a little bit different. You're not really going to be in a position where typically you can terminate the contract from the inspection. Mostly the way it works is you're going to have an inspection, you'll provide the inspection to the builder, and then you're going to create a punch list with the builder that's going to get addressed either prior to settlement or in some cases within 30 to 60 days after settlement, which is obviously very different than a standard resale home. And then the final thing to talk about with buying new construction is whether it's actually negotiable or not. So yes, new construction, like any other home, is negotiable. And right now, specifically in Philadelphia, we are seeing a lot of new construction actually offer incentives, because there is a pretty good inventory of new construction available right now. So builders are incentivized to sell these units so they can move on to their next project. So some of them are offering to cover closing costs. They're offering free upgrades. They may negotiate on the price, but typically the price is the last thing they want to really negotiate on, because they want to keep the comparables high for future homes that they're selling in the developments, especially if it's a multiple home development. If it's just a one-off single family, then they may not care as much and may be willing to negotiate on the price. But they are trying to hit certain numbers, but they're mostly willing to negotiate on closing costs, upgrades, and things along those lines. So let's talk about some hidden costs and what to watch out for with new construction. So one thing is the 10-year tax abatement that's available in Philadelphia. Just one thing to be aware of. This is a great benefit, but it has changed over the years. So previously, this tax abatement was a little bit stronger, where you were only taxed on the land for 10 years and not the improvement. Now they've changed it for new construction, where basically the improvement, you increase your tax on it by 10% every year until you reach the full amount. So it's still abated compared to being fully taxed on the property, but it's not quite as sweet as it used to be. There are still some properties out there with the old abatement, but it's just very important to know which abatement you're looking at when you're looking at a new construction home. The other thing to look at with new construction is if it's a larger development, you are going to potentially have HOA and condo fees. And a lot of times with developments that are single family, you're not really gonna have many amenities. It's really just gonna be mostly for the common upkeep of the drive aisles. You may have private trash pickup and snow removal or things along those lines, but it's typically not a HOA that you would think of like one in Florida that has a community pool or a golf course or things along those lines. And then finally, again, just to hammer it home, construction delays do happen. So just don't assume that your move-in date is set in stone. You need to be flexible if you're buying new construction. Finally, do I think that new construction is a smart investment in Philly? So just like anything else, you need to do your due diligence when you're looking at a new construction home. One thing that people ask is like, will it appreciate? Will it hold its value? I think similar to residential properties, it really is a case-by-case basis. You have to understand the area that you're investing in, and you really have to be bullish on that area, that it is going to continue to grow and appreciate. So if you're looking at new construction, obviously looking at ones in prime areas are usually gonna just retain their value better, but they also may not see the upside of quick appreciation. Like if you bought a new construction that was a little bit on the fringe of a neighborhood in an area that's developing more rapidly, you may see quicker appreciation there, but it may also be riskier. The other thing is it going to be a good investment to rent out? So one thing to keep in mind, if you do have a full 10-year tax abatement, that will help you cash flow on the property, which is great, but it will run out after the 10 years. So if you're looking at it as a long-term investment, just know that you want to look at two things. One, what will the tax amount likely be after the abatement is up? And then two, do you think you're in an area where there's going to be really good rental demand in the future? And then finally, as far as future resales, so not all new construction properties age well. So this goes back to really doing your due diligence and making sure that the development team behind the project is a good team and the materials that they're using are solid, good materials. If you buy something that was built by a novice development team, they didn't use the right materials, and they're not really creating a product that is built to stand the test of time. Obviously, when you go to resell that product in 10 years, if it has deteriorated, that is going to be problematic. But for the most part, if you're buying a product by a reputable builder, it should hold up pretty well, and you should be able to resell it pretty easily. Obviously, assuming that you maintain the property throughout the time that you live there. If you're thinking about buying a new construction in Philly, drop a comment below or shoot me an email. I'm happy to send you over a list of some of the best new construction developments that are out in the city right now. Of course, if you found this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time for some more Philly real estate tips.